Welcome to the Politics Chicks podcast. I'm Christy Branham.
And hi, I'm Monica Healy.
Monica, we have a lot to talk about today
We
on our
do.
first podcast. It's been a rough go trying to get through all the tech issues we've had for the past 2 hours.
2 weeks.
Um, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. You've had cat issues at your house. I've had dog issues at my house. So
We
let's
both had
just
internet issues at our
we
houses.
we both had internet issues. So this is like a group effort. We're like just doing what we can with what we have.
Power
So
through.
powering through. Because you're leaving for Europe tomorrow, like for
I
2
am
weeks.
for 2.5 weeks. Yes.
And we've had to reschedule this a couple times, and of course, we had to reschedule it till the very day before you're leaving for Europe.
And have I started packing? That would be a no.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's great. It's
Well,
great.
let's just do this. Um, so like I said, we're going to have a lot that we need to fit in here. We're going to talk about how you and I met and how the Politics Chicks podcast and actual Substack came to be. Um, we're also going to have a segment called What the Cluck, which is going to be about all the goofy ass things that are going on in the world right now. By the way, there will be swearing in this podcast.
Fuck
We'll
yeah.
try to keep it to a minimum. We'll try to keep it to a minimum, but yeah, there'll be swearing. Let's see. And then what's next?
Well, I always like to have a little good news because, as I keep referring to it, we just have a flood of awful. So we need to keep some good news. So we're going to have some hope in the hen house, things that are actually going well. And then we got our peep cheeps, some comments from Substack and the community that we're trying to build there.
Awesome. And obviously we're just embracing the whole chicken, chicks theme and kind of going with that. So, all right. So why don't you start it off on how we met and like how this whole adventure started?
Well, we were two running chicks training for the Chicago Marathon back in 2015. I can't even believe that was 10 years ago. And met in a running group and, spend lots of miles and lots of time running together. Um, Kind of the race from hell, as Christy has said. It was crazy hot. And then after that, we sort of fell back into just keeping in touch on Facebook.
Yeah, it was more like social media and then COVID happened and everyone was like keeping in touch on social media cuz that's all we had. And then the shit hit the fan right after the election, I think for both of us.
Indeed. Yep.
Um I know I was really struggling. I up to the election was doing everything I could on my personal social media to kind of, make people aware of what a vote for Donald Trump would look like for this country. And the day of the election that night, just watching the election and watching the polls come in, it was like a gut punch every single time that a state was called for Trump, especially in Pennsylvania. Once Pennsylvania got called, I knew it was over.
And it was shocking. It was shocking.
It was shocking. I cried a lot that night.
Yep.
Um, I seriously kind of missed school. Then I was enrolled in school at that time. I'm on summer break right now, but I go to school during the school year. I'm just getting yet another degree in graphic design in all my free time, and I just couldn't function. I couldn't deal with school the next day. I was just so hard hit in the gut. And then we both just started posting on social media, and I think that for me was a way to like voice how I was feeling and try to serve as a point of information, but also a point of hope for people on Facebook. And I noticed that you were doing the same. And then we messaged each other a couple times.
I commented on a few of your posts that I thought were really profound, and your analogies are so great. And yeah, that's when we started messaging. And you had this brainchild of this politics chicks and asked if I'd be interested.
It took all the courage I have to like ask, like work it all up to ask you to actually do this with me because I was just so nervous to ask you. It was like asking someone out on a first date, I think is how I can kinda reconcile it, because I, like, had to get all the courage worked up and say, "Monica, do you wanna do this crazy thing with me? Like, do you wanna do a Substack?" And you said yes, and I was just like, "Oh my god, she said yes to me," and I remember looking at Tom and going, "Monica said yes, now what?"
Now we dig in.
Now we dig in, and I don't think at that point we'd even talked about the podcast yet. Like, we had
No,
just talked about writing on Substack, and it kinda took off right away. I mean, we got an insane number of followers the first month or so.
we did.
Um,
Yeah,
and it was like every day we were just looking and people were commenting and reading our articles and, like, sharing with us that it was helpful to them. And then somewhere along the line, I got the cockamamie idea of doing a podcast, not realizing everything was involved with doing a podcast. And we're both like, sure. Well, then we're talking about things like tech, right? So there's lighting and there's like cameras and there's microphones and there's internet at your house that wasn't working. And then there was internet at my house that wasn't working. And it was just all stress. And then finally we just like ended up here. So here we are in our first podcast. And I kind of feel like I'm finally relaxing into it a little bit. Um, and I hope
it's
that
a
this
learning
gives
process.
us yeah, and I hope that this gives us the opportunity to express some of the anger and the frustration and the hope that I think everybody is feeling. That's kind of what I envision for this space. What do you envision?
Well, exactly that. I think we are learning that there are far more of us than there are of them, and even the people that did vote for this mess are realizing what a mess it truly is, and for the importance for all of us to come together and create community and to push back and to feel
Yes.
like there's reason to hope.
Yes, I agree. But I think that we also need to have space to be honest too. And I think a lot of there's a really a kind of lack of availability of that on the internet. I just hope that this is a safe space so that people feel that they can come here and understand that there's acceptance regardless of anything. You and I are both very socially liberal people, and we're very accepting of anyone regardless of what your background is. And I would even be accepting of a MAGA supporter if they would come to me and say that they understood that Trump is bad for our country and that Trump has set the world on fire by what he's doing. I don't know how you feel about that.
The world is on fire, and I think people that don't realize that are misinformed, and this is hard to dance around. You're either misinformed or you're on the wrong side of history. I don't think there's any other way to say it.
Well, I have to harken back to what Nicole Wallace says and the fact that there's Earth 1 and Earth 2, and we're living on Earth 1 and everybody else is living on Earth 2. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like two different sets of realities. So, just for all of you here that we're doing a video podcast, but this will also be an audio podcast. So, for all of you who are watching and listening, understand that this is going to be focused on Earth 1. We are not going to be doing any sort of support of Earth 2 here. It's going to be all Earth 1.
There are
Uh,
no alternative facts. There are just facts.
right. So that's what we're planning on providing here. We'd like to provide a little bit of humor. We'd like to make it a safe space because I'm sure one of us is going to start crying at some point because both of us are criers. We're
What?
both very
I don't know
emotional.
what you're talking about.
I will text Monica and she'll text me back and she's like, "You made me cry." And I'm like, "I always make you cry." How is
I
that?
Because I wear my heart on my sleeve and I'm a sentimental sap.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, we are not in the same time zone anymore. I am
We are
in
not.
Minnesota. We probably should have brought that up. I'm in Minnesota, and California is where Monica's going to be for the next 11
11
months.
months. Yep. This is my adopted home for 11 months. It was so not on my radar. 2025 has thrown a lot at me. Yeah. My mom died in early March, moved to California. None of those things were on my 2025 bingo card, but here we are.
Right? Well, life is unpredictable, right? Like if this past year, if anything has proved to us that anything is unpredictable. Um, so moving on, Monica, to what the clock.
What the clock?
What the clock,
What the clock?
right? So much to choose from, so little time. This segment is going to focus on what what the clock. Like
What
we
the
we
clock?
were trying to come up with a name for this segment that basically said what the fuck. And we were like I was like, "What the clock?" And you're like, "Did you come up with that off the top of your head?" I'm like, "Why, yes, I did." So we're trying to keep the swears to a minimum here, but there will be obviously there will be swearing, but we figured what the cluck was kind of a cute play on words for this. And what we're going to be discussing is first the West Point graduation trophy wives comment at his speech on Friday or on Saturday
Saturday.
at West
Yep.
Point. Yeah. So let's go watch that clip and we'll be right back.
And they gave him a lot of money, tremendous amount of money, more money than he ever thought he'd get. And he sold his company, and he had nothing to do. He ended up getting a divorce, found a new wife. Could you say a trophy wife? I guess we could say a trophy wife. It didn't work out too well, but it doesn't work out too well. I must tell you, a lot of trophy wives doesn't work out. But it made him happy for a little while at least. But he found a new wife. He sold his little boat. He got a big yacht. He had one of the biggest yachts anywhere in the world. He moved for a time to Monte Carlo and he lived a good life. And time went by and he got bored.
So, what was your take on it?
Well, before we dig into the actual speech, just the appearance of him coming on stage in what is typically supposed to be a nonpartisan speech, given a military academy, and he's wearing a MAGA hat. And so, right off the bat, just by his appearance, he makes it partisan. And I actually have Heather Cox Richardson's post pulled up, and somehow it's even worse to read a transcript of what he says rather than hear it. And if you haven't read some of the transcripts of what he says, go do that because you just heard it, but read it because it's just shocking. And yeah,
What I'm kind of worried about is that there was a report last week, and apparently they've pulled
yes,
down all the transcripts from the White House website. So they're doing that for a reason, people. Like this is it's not because they think he is, looks better on screen. It's because he looks more like he's insane when you're trying to read the transcript because it is completely unintelligible. It doesn't make any sense. Listening to him is not nearly as bad as reading him, like you
they're
said with
both
Heather
bad.
Cox Richardson. And the commentary, yeah. And the commentary that he made about trophy wives to a bunch of West Point grads who have spent 4 years busting their asses to get to this moment, to go forth and do good things. And the president of the United States deviates from the beaten path of the teleprompter, which he cannot stay on to save his life, to talk about trophy wives. And I just really, it made me angry on a very visceral level because I was just thinking about the fact that there probably are a lot of Trump supporters in that audience listening to him, but there are also probably a lot of non-Trump supporters sitting there listening to him. And the words of wisdom he should have been imparting to him should have been something on par of what Kermit the Frog gave at the University of Maryland, which was comparably a much
Yes.
better speech, I would say.
Well,
So
and as two women, we should point out that even the term trophy wives is derogatory and misogynist. I mean, it just is.
as women in their 50s who have been married to our husbands over 20 years, it's derogatory because we are the age that they would be ditching to get we
Right?
are the age of women that they would be ditching to get the trophy wife. And
Yep.
what does that say about women and their expendability? Like, oh, do we have an expiration date? Like
Party of
after
family values my ass.
right. So, moving on, why don't we talk about Arlington Cemetery? Because that was your pick. My pick was West Point. Your pick was Arlington Cemetery. It's ironic that he gave 2 speeches in the same weekend. So let's go watch that Arlington Cemetery clip and then come back.
Only the faintest glimpse at the infinite grace we have received from all who laid down their lives for America over the past 250 years. We're going to have a big celebration, as you know, 250 years. In some ways, I'm glad I missed that second term where it was, because I wouldn't be your president for that most important of all. In addition, we have the World Cup and we have the Olympics. Can you imagine? I missed that 4 years, and now look what I have. I have everything. Amazing the way things work out. God did that. I believe that too. God did it. You know, I got the World Cup and I got the Olympics. The 250 years was not mine. I'd like to take credit for it. But I got the Olympics, I got the World Cup when I was president. And I said, boy, it's too bad I won't be president then. And look what happened. I turned out, and we're going to have a great time. We're going to have a great celebration. But most important of all is the 250th anniversary. That blows everything away, including the World Cup and including the Olympics, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. So what are your thoughts on Arlington Cemetery?
Well, this one was much shorter. The West Point speech rambled on for over an hour, and the Arlington speech was less than 20 minutes. But even with less than 20 minutes, he still couldn't stay on task. He couldn't follow the teleprompter. He veered off into Olympics and the World Cup, and how, had he been the president the last 4 years, that he would have missed those things. And maybe he's glad to. I, and this, to piggyback onto his post that he later deleted, that was just appalling, using words like scum and monsters and hell. And this has become his typical holiday greetings, where, you know, where you wake up and on a holiday and you can count on Trump to belittle and deride and ridicule everyone under the sun except for MAGA.
Right. Do you have his post pulled up by any chance so you can read it? I'm going to put it up on the screen so that people can see it as you're reading it. And while you're pulling it up, I wanted to comment on the fact that these 2 instances, these 2 speeches that he gave this weekend were supposed to focus on Friday on or Saturday on the accomplishments of the incredible accomplishments of these West Point graduates. Just to become a candidate at West Point, you don't just apply there. It is such a selective process. You have to have a recommendation by a state senator to even get, for them to accept your application. Um, you've got to have an impeccable academic record, an impeccable, you know, civic record. And these kids have been spending their entire lives working towards this momentous moment, and Trump made it all about him. And
As
that's
every
what really bothered
narcissist
me.
does. Yeah.
And the same at Arlington Cemetery. He literally, before the clip that you and I just watched, he was talking about 2 kids who lost their mother recently overseas. And to have him literally about face just after having those kids rise and have the whole audience give them a round of applause at Arlington Cemetery, at what should be a very solemn occasion, um, and then move on to, dishing about the fact that he's the reason that we have the World Cup. He's the reason we have the Olympics. And it was the work of God that he was not here, or he wasn't president the last term. God made that happen, Monica. God
And,
did.
and we could do a major sidebar on the hypocrisy of the religious right and their support of him, but I
I'm sure we'll
digress.
get there eventually. We have like a boundless, endless number of podcasts to record. So I'm sure
What
we'll
the
get
clock?
to what the clock. So the last thing that we wanted to talk about, because we're running short on time now in this section, is his post. And I really think it's important that we read his post because those words mean something and they have power. And I don't think we'll have a lot of discussion right after it's over because it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll let you read it.
And note that it's in all caps. Happy Memorial Day to all, including the scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country through warped radical left minds, who allowed 21 million people to illegally enter our country, many of the being, he can't spell right either, many of the being criminals and the menta-o, he can't spell, insane. That was my interjection, by the way. Through an open border that only an incompetent president would approve, and through judges who are on a mission to keep murderers, drug dealers, rapists, gang members, and released prisoners from all over the world in our country so they can rob murderers and rape again, protected by these USA hating judges who suffer them an ideology that is sick and very dangerous for our country. Hopefully, the United States Supreme Court and other good and compassionate judges throughout the land will save us from the decisions of the monsters who want our country to go to hell. Happy Memorial Day. What the clock?
What the clock? Are we great yet? Are we great yet? Yeah. It's just I'm kind of dying to see Monica's going to be in the UK and Ireland for the next 2 weeks, and she is bringing her handy dandy little portable microphone, and she's going to interview some people while we're there. I am dying to see what people who are not Americans think of what's going on here right now because it is a fucking dumpster. It's a dumpster fire. Like every day, they're just like throwing more kindling on it to keep it going.
Well, I have to say that I'm kind of embarrassed to admit when I'm over there that I'm an American. And I had a friend recommend that I pretend I'm Canadian and just threw an A at the end of every sentence. Oh, how you doing, eh? I mean, we're Minnesotan. It's like Canada South, right?
Yeah, yeah, we've already got the long O going on. So yeah, I mean, it's something. Somebody needs to take his goddamn phone away. Like seriously, someone has got to take that phone away from him. Who
The
thinks
rage
it's a good
posting.
idea? I mean, does Susie Wiles think that that's a good idea for him to be posting while he's sitting on the toilet at 2 o'clock in the morning? Like, I just don't understand why none of his staff is even trying to reel him in.
I think that's another point that we could discuss at length too. That he's not really running the show, and I think his handlers have sort of cut him loose on that. Whereas during the first term, they tried to rein him in, and they don't care anymore because it's other people that are really running the show. But again, I digress.
Yeah, I agree. I can kind of see a scenario where they're letting him have his phone and like do what he wants to do as far as that goes while they make all the other decisions and they're writing all the other policy. And then instead of using the auto pen, they want to get video of him signing everything because just when he signs something, like the guy handing him the paper has to tell him what he's signing every single time. He doesn't even know what he's signing at this point. But again, I digress about the fact of mental acuity and the fact that we have none in the White
Well, and
House
then
right
later he
now.
will claim that he didn't sign it.
Yeah.
So he'll be like, "I didn't do that."
Yeah, or I don't know anything about that. Just kind of like he
You'll have
doesn't
to
know
ask my
whether or not.
lawyers.
Yeah. Yeah, and whether or not he needs to abide by the Constitution. And Monica wrote a great article on that. I encourage you to check her article out on Substack because it really kind of just laid everything out on the line. All right, I think we've spent enough time saying what the clucks. Maybe we should move on to Peep Cheeps, which is a segment that we really want to try to interact with our readers. We are going to invite you to send in emails. Make sure our email address is in the show notes. And we'd like you to send in emails telling us stories. If you've got pictures of you at protests, if you've got community engagement, activism ideas, or just want to share what you're doing in your community, we would absolutely love to see that. So, this segment is going to be saved for that. where we get to interact with you, read some of your stuff online. If you have any questions you'd like to ask Monica and I, you can feel free to send those questions to us as well. We didn't have that opened up yet. We actually are going to read the comments from a special article that Monica and I actually wrote together talking about the fact that it was our 100th article. And so I have them in front of me. So, Monica, why don't I read them and you can comment on them? Is that okay?
Well, let's go back and forth. You take one and I'll take one.
All right. Well, I'm going to start off with Terry McNamara, who responded to the article on May 14th. And she said, I signed up for a few too many Substacks after January 20th. And as I tried to figure out how to stay informed, but not continually overwhelmed. Yours is one that I read most often, and I've shared it most often, usually in emails, since I'm trying to stay off social media, but also in Signal group chat where I know the word is spreading. One of our organizers actually specifically recommended your Substack in our last face-to-face meeting, so keep it up. Wow, that's awesome. That's
Nice.
thanks for that. We appreciate it.
And this next one is from Janine. Janine says, I love your posts. My friend introduced me to your site and I've been following ever since. You're honest, real, pissed off. Which makes
Mhm.
me feel better about being pissed off. There's so much going on right now. It's confusing and chaotic, which is the point, right? Keep their heads spinning so they can't keep up with all the shenanigans. But you put it into a perspective that's relatable and doesn't require a half-hour lunch break to get through reading. Keep up the great work, ladies. Thanks for that,
Thank you,
Janine.
Janine. That was so nice. You know, we don't do this for likes, clicks, and comments, but when people do take the time out of their day to even read our stuff, that really is just such we're so grateful for that. But when you take time to put comments on there, it really just I know that it makes Monica and my day because we see them in real time and we'll text each other and say, wow, like, did you read that comment? So I just want to say that I really appreciate it. And I know Monica does too.
Keep
The
them
next one
coming.
yeah. The next one comes from Renee J. And she said, love the authenticity and the beautiful way you guys both write. You can tell it comes from your soul. Um, I love that comment because you and I have very different writing styles, but I just think we both have a very authentic writing style. Like I so enjoy reading your articles, Monica. And you know, when we were talking in the beginning about me asking you, one of the reasons I asked you is because I just really admired your writing style on Facebook. And I knew that that was the kind of person that I needed to be a partner with. Um, we both enjoy writing, so that helps. But you know, I wanted to be with someone that was not intimidated at all by writing a 1,500 to 2,000 word article in one sitting.
Well,
And
I was intimidated just by you asking because your level of writing is, you're up here. And I was
mm,
flattered to be asked. So thank
am I
you for
really
that.
though? I think we're kind of on the same. I think we're kind of on the same level. But thank you.
I think we complement
Um,
each other well.
yeah. And you want to read Jim and Jerome's last comment here?
Jamie Jerome says, what a pair of interesting stories by a pair of interesting writers. Congrats on the podcast launch. Can't wait to see it and seeing the two of you guesting on others' podcasts as well. Well, that would be amazing because then we
Yay!
wouldn't have to do the technology for it.
Right? We can just show up. That would be
Sign me up.
awesome. Yeah, thanks, Jerome. Okay, so now if you read that 100th article, you know that we have a drawing for a coffee mug, and Monica is going to draw it. So you ready, Monica? I'll hit
I'm ready.
the button.
Literally have my hat. Okay. All right. We got Jam and Jerome is the winner.
You win the
Thanks,
coffee
Jerome.
mug. Yeah, so I will be reaching out to you on direct messaging on Substack so that we can get your contact information so we can ship that to you. Yay, that's awesome. All right, Monica, the next segment that we have coming up is Hope in the Hen House. And this is your brainchild, so I'm going to let you roll with it.
All right. When we were talking about doing a podcast, there's really I keep calling it a flood of awful because it really is just a flood of awful. And that's on purpose, right? It's to exhaust us and overwhelm us and where we just can't keep up with everything. So I think it's really important that we build community and hold on to some hope. And in keeping with our whole chicken theme, we're going to have some hope in the hen house. And our For today, I think the biggest sign of hope is the courts. What's supposed to be our three co-equal branches of government, the executive is seizing power, the legislative branch is ceding power, but the courts are holding. So that is our hope to hold on to right now with the risk of democracy folding. They are, as of yet, still holding up their wall of democracy. As of May 23rd, 177 court rulings have at least paused some of the administration's initiatives. And 96% of the rulings for both Democrat and Republican appointed judges have been against Trump and the regime. So there's reason to hope that the courts will hold. So thank you, judges that are doing your job and upholding democracy and honoring the Constitution.
100%. I've been so pleasantly surprised with some of the even the Supreme Court rulings that have come back, and the fact that it is a across the board, bipartisan rulings by judges appointed from George W. Bush all the way to Barack Obama and Trump. They're everyone's ruling against him. So, like you said, 96% of rulings, that's a bad batting average right there. I don't know a whole lot about baseball, but that sounds pretty bad to me. If they were baseball players, they'd be in trouble. Like they'd be going down to the farm leagues. So, um yeah, I find that so hopeful too. I mean, I really think that we may be a little bit getting close to being on life support, but our democracy is still alive and it's fighting. And I think that's what we need to hold on to. Next up, we have on June 14th, we have the No Kings nationwide protest everywhere but Washington, D.C. Monica, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
June 14th, it's going to be the next big push. April 5th saw huge numbers nationwide. Estimates by the organization 5051 put those numbers at over 1,000 protests nationwide, between 4 and 5 million. And studies have shown that it takes 3.5% of a nation's population to engage in peaceful protests to affect meaningful change. And we're coming up on that. So to those protests, not to take away from our fabulous Substack, but I'll give a shout out to the Substack, We the People Dissent. If you look that one up, they have done a fabulous job of outlining all of the protests. They give you a list of protests in the states, they give you a map of protests, so you can find something that is close to you. And June 14th, they are predicting will be the biggest yet. So come out and join us. I attended a protest in my newly adopted state of California last week, and it was incredibly invigorating to be around like-minded people and to feel like I was doing something.
Yeah, and we're all on the same team, right? So I hope that we have the opportunity to even shine a spotlight on even more Substacks and other creators and people out there who are on the same team that we are, because the more that we put out there cumulatively, the better off we're all going to be, because there's a better chance of people seeing it. So I'm excited for June 14th because that will be the first protest I get to go to. It's going to be awesome. I struggle with dysautonomia and CRPS. If you have read any of our articles, you know that I've touched on those and that in a couple of them, and having an invisible disability is really hard, but I cannot walk long distances anymore. It's kind of sad because I went from running marathons to this. But I'm hopeful because my husband bought me a mobility scooter for Mother's Day. So I'll actually get to go to this protest, and I'm going to have signs, and Monica's going to be back from Europe. So hopefully we're going to meet up and we'll maybe live stream from that event if we can get all this shit figured out on how to do that. I just, at 55, if you told me I would be doing all this stuff right now, yeah, I never would have believed you. So the technology is a little bit overwhelming, but we're getting it, I think. The next hope in the hen house that we have is the Tesla takedowns, and they work because Tesla sales were down 49% for the month of April. Take that, Elon Musk.
Right?
They work. They work.
And
And
they
if you
wide too, everywhere.
Yes, and Monica's husband has Tesla.
He does. He bought it in 2021, and like many Tesla owners, probably bought them because they care about the environment, and it is good for the environment. And I would joke with Scott that I wouldn't ride in his car anymore, and he bought stickers and put them in his car, and they say pre madness edition, anti fascist. So yes, I do occasionally ride in a Tesla, but
And for those of you who have Teslas and have decided that you wanna keep it because you like it, like, we're not dunking on you. Like,
no,
Monica's told me Scott loves his Tesla. Like,
yep,
people who drive them love them. Um, I just have no problem with people not giving him any more of their money, though. Like,
right.
that's
It's not about the car; it's about Elon's role in dismantling democracy.
which leads us into our next hope in the hen house, which is Target and the impact that the boycotting has impacted Target. They came out with their sales numbers and they're not looking great. And I think initially they tried to pin it on the economy, but um, the CEO did come out and say that the traffic is down in the stores and the boycotts are working. And I got to tell you, as two Minnesotans, we love ourselves some Target. Like I kid you not. When my kids were little, I would pack them up in the car and strap them into the two baby holder cart at Target and get myself a coffee and go shopping at Super Target because I could get grocery shopping, I could pick up clothes for the kids, I could pick up diapers, everything. So going to Target was like a social event when our kids were small. I don't know if you did that when they were younger, but yeah, I love Target. I absolutely love Target. My best friend was a buyer for Target for many years, and I loved it. And it was really hard not to shop there for the first month, but I have not been in a Target for 2.5 months, 3 months maybe. I don't know about you. And we have kind of worked our shopping around not shopping at Target. We just get it elsewhere. And if we have to pay a little bit more, I think I'm okay with paying 50 cents more for my paper towels if I get them from Costco. Let's talk about public pushback, Monica. That was the next thing we had up on our list about how that's working with things like Head Start and them not closing down the Social Security Administration's phone line, right?
Yeah, lots of things that have been rolled back because public pushback is meaningful, and the more you can do to push back, the more you're going to see your democracy stay in place. So keep calling your representatives, keep calling your senator, call your attorney general, do all the things, write the letters, show up at protests, talk to your neighbors.
Show up
Cancel.
at town halls. Show up at we've got Tom Emmer here in Minnesota who is a disgrace, and they literally show up at his office every single Saturday here in Minnesota. Even though he's not there, they still if you have the opportunity to show up at their office in your state, great. If you're in DC, go to their office in DC, right? Use the 5 Calls app. It makes it super easy. We'll put information about the 5 Calls app in the show notes. It gives you a script. It gives you the phone numbers. So all you have to do is press one button and it literally dials your legislator. And the other thing that I came across last week is that Kelly Morrison said that it's actually even better if we email on top of the calling because they can tally the emails. So call and email. Do both. Even if you need to just like write one email and copy and paste everybody, just send both. That matters. They tally the calls, they tally the emails. So that's what's helping with the pushback on this. And then the last thing we wanted to talk about in Hope in the Hen House is that the librarians and park rangers, who would have thought that they would be the ones to save the world, right?
Right?
The librarians at the Library of Congress help keep Doge out of the building. I just picture them like the Resistance in Star Wars with them all sitting there with their lightsabers keeping the Sith Doge out of the building. And if you do not follow the Alt National Parks website and all the spin-offs that have happened since on social media, Alt Acadia National Park, Alt Library of Congress, Alt Department of Education, go follow those sites. They literally have an invisible coalition going on where they have super secret passwords. Like they'll do Mayday messages over social media and and when they do things like say numbers or say cryptic things, comment on that, because if you comment on it, it boosts it so that more members of the coalition see it. A lot of times my family's into theater, so a lot of times I'll like do a line of a song from a musical. I think the last thing that I did was how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. That's the last thing I put in.
I often see your comments, and they always make me chuckle. And sometimes it's a play on whatever their number is,
Yeah, once in a while I'll throw in a good Hamilton quote.
which they do too. They're clearly
They do
Hamilton,
too.
whoever runs
Tomorrow there'll be more of us.
that. Yep.
Yeah, but just go read them, because if you want up to date information about what's really going on in the government and you don't trust legacy media and corporate media, as you should not at this point, because they are being censored. And I actually wrote an article, a pretty in depth article on the media the day before yesterday.
Yep.
They're not calling a spade a spade.
No.
And it's really important that we discern what information we're consuming to make sure that we're getting the best, most accurate, up to date information, and not just spin and not just propaganda. So I really encourage you to include the alt social media sites in your news diet as a source of information. Obviously, Heather Cox Richardson in Letters to an American, that's what her Substack is called. Sites like The Bulwark are a good option. David Pakman is a good option.
Robert Wright.
Um, Robert Wright, Brian Tyler Cohen is a good option. So I encourage you to look them up on YouTube. And I guess now we're at the closing, Monica. We made it.
We made
We
it.
have we haven't made it yet because I haven't pressed stop recording. What you guys don't know is that we had a technical debacle in the middle, and like Monica froze, and like we had to. It was like yeah, it was like the slow mo. What was that movie with Keanu Reeves?
The Matrix.
The
I
Matrix. It was
watched
like
The Matrix.
yeah, it was total Matrix moment for Monica. I mean, she looked pretty badass in the whole thing, but you know,
Yeah.
the not having the audio and video lineup was gonna be pretty disconcerting. So, final
And kudos
thoughts.
to Christy, who has been handling all of the tech, because while I am not completely technologically inept, she has taken the reins on all of this. So thank you for masterminding all of this.
Well, it's been upper mediocre at best, but I guess that's the best that we can hope for without
Great.
professional training, right? So, I've been watching a lot of YouTube, taking Skillshare classes, just trying to learn out how to use all this stuff, like using Premiere Pro, using After Effects for all the cool animations and everything we have in our intro. Um, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for spending the time with us today. Thank you to all of you who read our Substacks. I kind of want to do a shout out to Melinda Manager. She comments on almost every single one of her articles, and she's such a sweetheart. And I hope I have the opportunity to meet you in person, Melinda. But every comment that you make just makes my heart smile. It just makes my day brighter. So I appreciate it. Um, and I know Monica is probably very grateful too. I'll let you do some thank yous too.
Yes, thank you to our readers, those of you that have commented, and we mentioned that earlier. That I have mentioned in some of my articles before that I was a longtime teacher, and the feedback that I got from teaching was immediate. I could see the joy on the kids' faces, and absent that, writing has been cathartic, but you don't get the feedback from that. What the readers take from that is up to them. So thank you for the feedback that you're providing to us, because it's meaningful and we appreciate it.
It is. And all we never put any of our content behind a paywall on Substack, but there are 19 people thus far who have been so generous and supported us with a paid subscription. And I'm not peddling the subscriptions, but I just want you to know that what that money goes towards covering is the equipment that we had to buy to get this podcast off the ground, all of the subscription things like the podcasting software and all the other things that have monthly subscriptions that so it just helps to phrase some of the costs so that we can keep bringing this great content to you. So thank you to our paid members. We're so grateful for that. And we don't get an opportunity to say that enough. So I just want to say thank you again. Coming up, we got Monica hopping a plane to the UK tomorrow. She'll be in London next week and then Ireland afterwards, right?
London for 4 days, and then Ireland, where my husband works periodically. So I'll be checking out hopefully some new sites, and then back in Minnesota for a while, where hopefully you and I will actually meet up in person again.
Hopefully we'll meet up. Hopefully we will be doing a podcast with both of us in the same room. I'm trying to arrange that so that we can get a space big enough to have all the equipment and us both sitting in the same space. While Monica is traveling, even though this is our first podcast, the next couple weeks I will probably be having guest hosts with me. I'm super excited about. I've got one of them lined up already. I'm going to not mention the name right now, but I am just beyond excited with who I've got lined up for next week. And yeah, Monica is going to spend some time across the pond getting some perspective on the dumpster fire here from their perspective. And yeah, it's going to be great.
We've got more planned, including some more hot takes and live streams. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Click on the bell to receive notifications every time something drops. Like, click, share on all our socials, the Politics Chicks. And let's build a community. And I keep saying, keep shining your light so we can find each other in the dark.
We are stronger together.
And there are more of us than there are of them.
And I guess that's it, Monica. We did it.
Way to go.
We did it.
Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye. Wait, it won't let me stop recording.
Yes, we have to keep going.
Bye. Bye.
So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen.
I think you should sing that one of these times. Oh my God, it literally will not let me. Stop.